Hey, everybody, I'm Scotty T from Your Comedy Minute, and I have an extremely talented and funny young man with me. Jesse Egan is here. Jesse, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me on. I really
Thank you for
appreciate it.
giving me some of your time, my friend.
Oh yeah, I love
I
it.
love that Peter Pan shirt I told you.
Oh yes, thank you. That's
Oh my
that's
God.
me
Jeez
at heart,
Louise.
really.
It's not every day you see a guy in a Peter Pan shirt.
Well, you know that as a comedian, for me, it's like the happiness is what allows them to fly, right? You
Yeah,
know, in
yeah,
the
I
end, when
love
they
it.
laugh and they think of happy thoughts, they fly,
I
and that's
it
how I
worked
feel
with
about
me,
comedy.
man. It worked with me.
Yeah,
Let's start. I'm pretty sure you're in California,
I am. I'm in San Diego.
San Diego. Born and raised?
I was born and raised in the Washington D.C. area in
That's what I
Virginia,
thought.
Northern Virginia. Yeah.
My office used to be just outside of DC.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I lived there
Yeah,
a
that's a
long
tough,
time.
tough town.
Yeah, it was great growing up there, though.
Was
You know.
it?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
I enjoyed it. My whole family's still back there, so I go back
Okay,
to visit.
good. And I think this question will tie in with how you got from DC to California. But when did you start doing comedy?
I really started around 2006.
Okay,
It's been almost 20 years now.
it's amazing. You're an
Yeah.
amazing guy. You got a lot going on.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I started it. I started doing it at like a little workshop at Poppy's in Claremont, I think it was called.
Okay.
The bar's gone now because of how bad that set went. But uh,
They closed down right
uh,
after your set, huh?
yeah, I made the classic mistake of like doing a couple sort of open micy kind of workshops and then like inviting everyone I knew to my first show. So there are people that have still never come back to see me again after that first
was
debacle.
was there a catalyst back 2006, or was there something that said Jesse go do comedy?
Well, I was managing or assistant managing, I can't remember, at Winston's. This is an OB live music venue. And at the time, I think I was the GM. I think the owners were looking for other things to do during the day in the off times. They have bands at night, but there's like for most of the day we'd be bartending. We'd call it crossing the desert. There'd be nothing going
Okay.
on, you know? So I tried a bunch of things. I tried to bring in like spoken word poetry and karaoke, and comedy was one of those things that I thought I've always wanted to try this. Let's bring it on. But I was just going to be the host. I used to host a lot of these events, trivia and all these
Right,
things.
right.
And so we were get it was something that's later been called a fun mug, was we would be getting ideas from the audience and putting them in this mug and then having a comic come up and riff on these ideas,
Okay.
and I would be the host and I would just pull the ideas out or let them do it, and I'm just sort of facilitating this. But after a while, the audience gave me crap for ideas, so they're putting in asparagus and the comics got nothing. So I
Right.
started to write my own joke premises and put them in the bucket and pretend they were from the audience.
Okay.
And I'm up there hosting, and comics would pull it out and then they would, you know, have nothing. And I thought I got something. I could, so I
Okay.
started to try it. It was sort of like one of those things I let someone else host and I would try to riff it. And I think it was the combination of seeing bad comics bomb with bad
Heard
stuff
that
and then
before.
also being inspired by like Brian Regan and seeing him and some other comedians like
Okay.
live and thinking, you know, both the mixture of the crap and the good was like
Right. Made you want to do
I
it.
want to try it. Yeah.
Well, and you went on, you've done a lot, but you won the San Diego Funniest Person contest.
Yeah, I competed in that a few years. I
Okay.
lost to my buddy Zoltan, I think more than once.
Okay.
And and then I think it was the third go round where I was like, I'm never going to do another contest again. I think I had never done another contest again.
Yeah,
But
well, you
I
go out on a high note.
I
I just wonder
remember
if people
him.
come up in there in San Diego and say, I'm funnier than you.
Oh, sure. I mean, other people have won this award,
I
won
know.
this contest, but I just remember that night when I was going to do it that he messaged me and said, "Show him how it's done." And I've always rembered that it was like
That's
this
cool.
encouragement from this really great comedian who I always was inspired by and always wanted to follow in his footsteps, and so I've sort of
Okay.
followed him the whole time.
Well, and
Even
you
though he's
you
younger than me,
you
he
have
he
done
started
so
right around the same time as me, and he's
you've
my
done
favorite.
so much, and we're going to try and get through everything if I can.
Awesome.
I wrote down, just so you know, I write down a lot of stuff. I do a lot of research. I try to with each person that comes on. You open for Theo Vaughn, Dane Cook, Doug Stanhope, just to mention a few.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, do you have, and it doesn't have to be any of those, a favorite show that you've done in 20 years? And then the follow up is me being an idiot, a least favorite where things didn't go so good.
Oh man, there's so many least favorites. I I think one
Do
of
it. Do a favorite first. I mean, in other
of
words, would it be
yeah. Well, you mentioned Theo, and I thought Theo Vaughn was really one of the funniest people that I got to meet and work with, and so I went out to Denver and featured for him, and also here in Coronado and stuff. He was
I'm a big
terrific.
fan. Just to
Yeah,
interrupt. I'm a big fan of Doug Stanhope. How was
yeah.
that?
He was fantastic, and we got to
Yeah.
work with him a few times at Winston's, as well as Joey Coco Diaz. And
Okay.
Joey Diaz was one of the nicest guys I'd ever met in comedy. One of the funniest, but also really just a genuine good dude. So
Okay.
getting to spend time with him was really really special. I think one of the things that really stands out to me was one of my best friends from the Comedy Store, Vicky Barbalak. She got this break and she went on America's Got Talent, and she and I years ago had gone to Idaho and done a little, comedy outing. And she had said it was like one of her favorite trips. And so when she got on America's Got Talent and it sort of blew up a little bit for her, she started to take me on the road. And so I started to feature for her around the country. And that was just such a special period of time before COVID shut everything down. We
Right.
had a little bit of time together, and it was really wonderful. And I think touring with one of your best friends is something that is just
Yeah.
so special. And she's always inspired me. When we were first at the Tropicana in Las Vegas doing shows, she had given me this book, Big Magic, and I had read it, and it really told me that I needed to quit my job and do this full time. And so she was the
Okay.
one that really inspired me to do that. And then COVID came, and we
Right.
were
Right. Yeah. It
screwed,
stopped
because
everything.
found out stand-up comedy is not an essential. It's unessential. Nobody needs to laugh.
Yeah.
So that got
I
shut
would
down.
argue that point now. I think it's essential, the world we're
I
living
agree.
in here in 2025.
Oh, I agree
It
so
really
much.
is. Well,
Yeah.
we missed it, the least favorite show. You said we had a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a lot. I've had a lot of funny ones. I mean, I had one where a comedian and I were going to go do like a church circuit. So he had another comedian who was like from the church world that was going to go with him, but that guy canceled. So he knew that I could work clean. He took me with him. We had done a little touring together before in like Detroit and Chicago and stuff. And so we went all the way over to like Michigan, flew over there to do a bunch of church shows. And they were really rough shows, but the worst one was we had to perform in a school at like noon for it was a fundraiser for bringing attention to kids to healthy snacks, and it's me and this other obese comedian on stage trying to convince. And it was in a theater built for like 700, 800 people, and 26 people were there at noon, because noon is the right time in a school
Oh
on a
yeah.
Saturday morning to perform. And of course we were like, there's not going to be kids. It was just kids. It was like 20 kids and 6 adults, and the kids are running up and down the aisle, and we're bombing for an hour, and then we're standing out in the lobby, and people are walking by going, yeah, keep at it. Yeah. And so we made, I think, $26, like $1 a head, to fly out. It was so depressing and he wanted to go to like Kmart to find some banana flavored Twinkie to like cheer him up that he'd grown up with in Michigan. And I just said, I'm just going to stay in this parking lot and cry and think about my life choices.
We
But yeah, that was
got my
one that it
life
just
choice.
always stands out to me as like, you know, you bomb, but you don't often fly all the way across the
Right.
country and bomb for kids in a school. And
What's
some
funny,
of those shows have been the hardest. It's the
yeah.
kids ones. I had one on Carnival
Well,
too.
you kind of playing into my hands here. This thing's going so swimmingly. You mentioned the church circuit, and you have a dry bar comedy special.
Yeah.
And I didn't know about those until I kept seeing them, and then I've had a few comedians that have done them. And recently, I think it was Jan Karam was telling me about it
Yeah.
and how clean it had. Like she couldn't mention divorce. She couldn't,
Oh, wow, yeah. It's a new
which
level
you
of
know, I
clean.
just found that really interesting.
Yeah, they sort of the institution of marriage is really sacred. And so when you fly over there, you're in Provo, Utah, and you're performing at a
They're
place called Dry
Mormons.
Bar. They're Mormons, and they have like teenagers working the bar because they're all just like fruit juices and stuff they're selling. And you've got to be clean to the point of like sort of a level that I'd never really thought
That's
about. Beyond television clean, beyond church clean. This is into like don't talk bad about, you know, you're like, all right, 25 minutes of food jokes. Here we go. I mean, you really got to keep it squeaky for them, and
I
not
gotta
only
tell you,
no
Jesse.
drugs, alcohol,
Yeah,
politics, religion, but also don't talk bad of your wife or your girlfriend or
yeah, that's what she was saying.
and obviously no talk about sex or
Yeah,
cursing or anything like
well,
that, but you
I'll
know,
just say this, and I think you took it perfectly when you said it's got to be cleaner than church clean.
yeah, yeah, it's a whole nother level.
A whole another level of
Yeah.
clean.
So being
Uh,
able, doing like a half an hour on that was really an amazing experience though, because
yeah,
they treat you really well. They had you come out and they shoot the special where they have you walk through the venue and do video of you and they set up this amazing stage and we filmed two shows and they edit it and put it out and
yeah.
I've made 35 cents off of this special so far, but the
35
the
cent.
the great
It's
thing
got like,
is
I forget, 40,000 views or something on YouTube or
I don't know.
400,000 views on YouTube.
I'm not sure that
It's
it's
got a
taken.
lot. I looked at it.
But
Um,
but
Go
it
ahead.
was a
I'm sorry.
great experience, and they're
Yeah.
really really nice people.
Well, and that's what Jan was saying that she actually tried to get a couple other, but they rejected them. They weren't
Yeah,
church clean.
maybe not clean enough.
Right.
In
That's
fact, I've
exactly
heard
what they said.
stories of people getting flagged for being sort of having dirty material, and mine could have been flagged because I'm not positive if I say friggin' at all during, but like friggin', I think is also too far
Is it?
for
Yeah.
that. Because it means something else if sort of translating.
Yeah. I just
But
said I
I
had
had a
Greg
comedian
Greg
friend that.
Morton on.
Oh, okay, yeah,
I don't know if you know Greg. I had Greg Morton on, and he
yeah,
did
sure.
one.
Oh,
And I
okay.
said to him, I thought you got away with a little bit.
Did he?
I
Yeah,
didn't
but they
seem
might
like
then
it.
bury it in the algorithm or whatever if they don't like the sort of content. Or if someone complains, see, that's another thing. You can get flagged for content. I have a friend of mine who had a completely clean special, but someone complained online about her sweater, that they could see the outline of her breasts in the
Oh my
sweater,
God.
and it got
Wow.
flagged for obscenity because of this one complaint about her look. I mean, it wasn't like a racy look. It was just like it's a female comedian. You could see her female body, and they were like, "This is too much." I mean, I just thought it was crazy, but I
Yeah.
that is not on them as much as that is like the people
Let's
complaining,
let's
I
let's get away from the church stuff. I'm not good with the church stuff.
guess.
If you see any of my stuff, I'm as bad as it gets. Um,
I started filthy, of course. I
I
was
had a
filthy for
preacher. I
years.
had a
Yeah.
preacher on one time, Scott Shanahan, and I said to him, I said, I didn't know you were a preacher. I wouldn't have had you on. And he does a bit. I'll do it real quick because I just love him. We've come to be friends. Where he says about that, Scotty, you couldn't do it. About doing clean stuff. I said, you're right. And he does a bit about the comedians that he does shows with come up and say, "Hey, I'm sorry, I swore a little bit of this, that." And he looks at him and goes, "Well, it's not my, I don't care. You're the one going to hell." And he
Yeah,
says it's so deadpan, and I'm surprised. He's like, "Well, I like your stuff, Scotty." I'm like, "Oh my god."
that's great.
Host of Tonight in San Diego, still doing that?
No, we did that for a few years, and
Okay,
it sort of petered out under its own
did it?
power. It was a very sort of big production of all these people kind of volunteering their time to make this thing happen.
Yeah.
And Fale Lewis, who created it, he put in so much work in editing it and everything else. And I don't remember the exact timing if this was COVID related or not, but it's sort of
Okay.
we did it for years and filmed it, and you did it downtown San Diego, and even made it on local television. It was
Yeah,
on
that's what I pictured.
CW6 for a while.
Seemed
And
like
the
it would be
funny
a pretty
thing is
cool thing.
when we first put it out, it was on a Mexican television channel first, and so we had a viewing party to see it, and we didn't know this, but there's like little mini channels in between. So
Yeah.
it's like we're on channel 115A or something instead of B or whatever. So we go to the channel to like watch the premiere episode, and it's just like tits show up. It's just like boobs like going around. It's like it's like a Mexican porn or something. We're like, oh my god, and it's like, oh no, click to 115B, and there's oh there we are. But it was like we told everybody to watch it. I think everybody tuned in like, what is this show? We should have just kept that programming and it would have really
The
taken off, I
second
think.
coming of Jesus. I'm never watching Mexican porn again.
But yeah, that was a really great experience, and
Cool.
I had to be the writer and the host, and I had started as the co-host, so I was like the Ed McMahon, and then later
Yeah.
became the host.
Well,
And
you were excellent at it. I watched some of the videos and stuff.
oh,
I think
thanks, I appreciate it. It was so much fun.
now again, I'm not sure about this, but I think well, I think I'm right. I think you're into music a little bit.
Yes, I am. I grew up in Virginia. My younger brother and I were both big hip hop fans,
Yeah.
and in the last like year or two, we've been trying to finally sort of have our midlife crisis of releasing some
Danny and
music.
Jesse, is that right?
Yeah, yeah, because we used to do music together, but then being so far apart from each other, it was hard. But I think through the pandemic of sort of learning the Zoom thing and trying to reconnect, we started to have weekly meetings just as brothers, just to
So
spend
you
time
really
with
it
each
really
other.
is your brother.
Yeah, it's my younger brother.
Okay.
He's like uh one of he's maybe basically my favorite person. I love him so much,
Good.
and we're really close as siblings. We've always been really close, but then being geographically so far away has been really hard. And so reconnecting like that, at first it was like, oh, we'll try to do music and put it out and make a splash. But I think we've come to realize, or at least I have, that like it's the creative process of doing something with someone you really love. That's the time. That's the special thing about it. It doesn't matter if nobody buys a record or whatever. It's just that we get together and create together again, just like we did when we
Yeah.
were little
It
kids.
sounds
You know,
fantastic.
I remember
And
being like a little kid in the basement breakdancing with my brother and him doing the head spin and my mother running downstairs and going, "No, he's gonna break his neck," and grabbing him by his legs while he's on his head and holding him up like this. So it's like we've been sort of fans of this genre of music for a really long time and just
well,
being
and
creative is
I'm gonna because and again, I will put the links to all of your, your YouTube, your
oh, thanks.
Spotify, to your Instagram, to all your stuff. But I did see, I think it was on Instagram, Redman
Yeah, my
sent
brother
you a
got me
birthday wish.
yeah, yeah. My brother got me that from Redman and Be Real from Cypress Hill. It's like
Oh, really?
he knew how
Okay.
much I love those guys, and it's cameo, so it's like you're paying
Oh,
for the
okay. Yeah, no,
message.
I
You know
didn't
what I'm
know. I
saying?
didn't know that.
But but putting it on Instagram makes it seem like that's my buddy Redman.
Yeah.
But it also is one of those things that it does feel inspirational just to get a message from someone like that and
Oh,
to
cool. Your
hear.
brother really does love you.
Oh yeah, he's the
Well, it's
best.
funny, and people don't know, people wouldn't picture it with me, but like when I tell them I worked the Wu-Tang Clan or Tribe Called Quest
Wow.
or, Notorious B.I.G., I always tell people I had dinner with Will Smith and he didn't spank me or didn't slap me.
I didn't slap you.
He didn't slap me. I had dinner with R. Kelly and he didn't piss on me. And I
Wow.
had dinner with Diddy or I met Diddy and he didn't try,
You're 3 for 3. That's
yeah,
amazing.
pretty good. Pretty, but
That's
people
really
do
good.
flip out when I tell them about Wu Tang Clan. I go, cash rules everything around me. They're like,
Oh
what?
man.
How does this guy know this stuff?
That's awesome. They were the second coming for us. I was
Yeah,
like a huge.
I used to be in the, go to BET and be the only white guy there.
Oh, no kidding. Wow. So what
Yeah.
did you do with Wu-Tang Clan?
What was Loud Entertainment. That was a
Oh,
division
wow.
of RCA.
Amazing. So you're part of
Yeah.
the record company that was putting out their
Yeah. We
first
were putting
records.
out and I did the promotion and did the, selling the
Wow.
record, everything.
They were so incredible, especially when they
Mob
first came
Deep,
out.
there were all
Oh,
kinds
I
of artists
loved Mobb Deep.
coming through the branch.
There's a guy in my neighborhood at 7-Eleven that plays this classic like 90s hip hop, and I go
Yeah.
in after this weekly show. I go in every week. I say, I'm here for the music. I'm in there
Well,
buying
and we
chips or
should we
whatever, but
should
I'm
get
really
back
just
to
chatting with
comedy
them.
because that's what you do. But I just wanted to
Yeah,
interject that. But
it's
it's funny
amazing.
because we were known at that time. I was BMG, and the only thing we had they used to call was Will Smith was Cosby rap.
Oh yeah, yeah,
We didn't have any of the
sure.
till we got Jive Records and started to get Tribe and start to get some credibility that we
Yeah,
started to have more. But at the time we were just Cosby rap.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I guess my brother and I are almost back to Cosby rap, although he's always trying to push me to like make it a little harder and edgier and that sort of thing.
Well, who knows where it'll go?
I just want to make sure it sounds
You
like
tell your
Cosby.
brother from me, and hopefully we'll keep in touch after this, whatever. But you got the right approach. I'm friends with the guys in Cheap Trick, and they
Oh,
just
cool.
played. They're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame now, but their thing was we just enjoy playing. They did
Yeah.
300 nights a year, and just enjoy doing what your time with your brother, and who knows what'll come from it.
Yeah, I think that's what Rick Rubin said is that you create for the sake of the art and not for the
Yeah, just
audience
have a good time doing it.
sales. Yeah, totally.
You also, I think, I'm not sure again after that tonight in San Diego. Do you do some podcasts? Do you do a few different podcasts?
Yeah, I did a couple different podcasts. There had a long running one called Awful Neutral, which was like a group of
Right.
comedians playing Dungeons and Dragons poorly and recording it. Nobody knew how to play really, but everybody was just sort of riffing, doing different characters and ad libs and stuff, and absolutely a blast. I got to play a cowboy cowman. He's half cow, half man, named Chud Bingsley, and he was patterned after the cowboy from Big Lebowski, whose name
Think
escapes me
that
right
explains the merchandise that's on your website.
now. Yeah, right.
Is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Um,
So the Awful Neutral was our big one, and then we're doing an offshoot of that called Hell Frasier, which is based on Frasier, the show with Frasier and
okay.
Crane, but it's sort of set in this slow, like fantasy world with magic and stuff like that.
Okay. So I take it, I'm just guessing here, but maybe Dungeons and Dragons, you are into it a little bit.
I loved it when I was a kid. My brother and I used to play
Oh,
when we were
really?
just alone, the two of us together. We didn't have books or dice or anything,
Yeah.
but we'd be in the back of the car, my parents taking us on trips, and we'd be playing. I'd be narrating, okay, you go down the hall and you see it. What do you do? And so it's just me and him playing, and
I don't, you know
there's
what?
always a soft
I don't
spot in
know
my heart for that.
anything about it. Not a
Yeah.
damn thing. Not
It's
one thing.
just role playing. Like if someone presented you with a scenario, what do you do? And then you make up whatever you want. And
I
in the
mean,
game, there's dice and there's rules and statistics and all that stuff, but you don't need any of
if
that.
there's not drinking involved, I'm leaving.
There's not drinking involved. That's
Got
great.
to be drinking involved.
That's funny.
Like if I went to do that dry bar special, they'd have to have some beer for me.
Oh, you'd have to sneak that, I think. You'd have to
I'm teasing.
smuggle that.
I know. I'm kidding around.
Yeah.
You recently took a trip. I was over your Facebook page and I saw recently took a trip to Japan. How was that?
Oh my gosh, it was amazing. My wife's a teacher, so we
Okay.
chaperoned a group of students over there. And this is our
Okay.
second, we did it last year too during spring break. So it's like a trip that she organizes. And we have a tour guide that takes us around. And we went to Kyoto and Tokyo. And on our first trip, we went to Hiroshima, which was really powerful, and went to
Yeah, I bet.
the museum there. But it was great. I mean, it can be difficult chaperoning. I mean, we had like 50 students the first time, like 25 this time, and they're mostly well-behaved kids. But every so often,
Yeah.
this is Japan, where people are polite and quiet and well-behaved, and we're a big group of American students coming over acting like jackasses. So there can
Yeah.
be. We had one kid jumping up and down in the elevator, and he broke the damn thing, and then we
Oh
had to
my
get someone in
God.
to repair it. So it was embarrassing. But
Yeah.
in
But
general,
other
I
than
thought
that, it was
Japan is
fantastic.
amazing. Yeah, we went to this
Yeah.
Nara Deer Park where the deer bow to you and you bow back and then you feed them and pet
Wow.
them.
I
It was
saw the pictures.
incredible.
I saw it on Facebook, but I didn't really get a chance to check it out. That's
That
cool.
really struck me. That place was magnificent, and they had the
Yeah.
the largest wooden building in the entire world there. It was this Buddhist temple that really is like when you look at it, you almost can't believe that it exists. It's so gigantic.
That's
Inside
cool.
it is the largest wooden Buddha in the entire world, which just the
Okay.
scale of it is massive. And to think about
Would you
the
like to
threat
play?
from lightning.
Would you like to go there and do comedy?
I would not like to do that at all. I think that would be the opposite of.
Really?
I don't think. Yeah, I don't think that would be. I'm not sure. uh, I would have to speak Japanese. I think absolutely.
Well, I have guys from China, different places, and they use it as a. One girl told me, Katie Hembry, that they use it to teach English.
Oh wow.
That she'll sit there. I'll say, "Do they even understand?" No, but they're that's how they're learning
Oh
English.
yeah, and our tour guide was really funny.
Yeah.
She was great. So
Okay.
yeah, I think maybe it could happen if there was enough people that understood. Or I
Well,
could I could
it's
communicate.
funny how it works. It's like I had a girl on who's from Mexico and she's in Canada, so she wanted to learn English, and now it turns out that she's there's more Hispanic shows that she's doing more shows in Spanish
That's great. Yeah.
just
I always thought
because
that
there's
would
a
be
need
fun
for
to
it.
like to be able to do a show in another
There,
language.
yeah, and the guy I mentioned earlier, Scott Shanahan, he's in Italy and he does shows in Italian.
Oh, that's cool. So
Yeah,
he
so don't.
speaks,
But
he's
hey, who
fluent.
knows?
Yeah, maybe I got us just
Maybe
working
you and
on it.
your brother will be Japanese hip hop artists.
Oh, I would love that. That'd be amazing. I'll talk to him
I'm
about that.
being an idiot.
That's great.
Comedians that inspired you when you were younger, and comedians that you like now.
Oh, sure. So when I was really young, I think the first thing I ever heard was Mel Brooks' 2000-Year-Old Man.
Okay,
My parents or my grandparents had this tape, and it was like one side is the 2000-year-old man, the other is 2001-year-old man. It's really sketch comedy, but that was like one of the first things I
is that
heard.
with Carl Reiner?
Yeah, Carl Reiner interviewing
Right.
Mel Brooks, and it was
Yeah.
really brilliant. And I listened to it so many times. And then we had like the Bill Cosby records, and Chocolate Cake for Breakfast still sticks with me as like the greatest sort of storytelling. But
Okay.
I later really came to appreciate Rodney Dangerfield. I just thought of him as like the pure stand-up comedian. I'd
I
see him
I
on an
got to
interview.
meet Rodney.
Did you really? That's amazing.
Yeah, and
What
in
was he like?
California, I was there with a BMG convention,
Oh, wow.
RCA convention, more or less.
Okay. And
Maybe, do you want me to do the story or do you want me to
I
do it
would
off
love
the
to hear the
air?
story. No, I want to hear about Rodney.
Well, we were there. It was a convention, and there's all Richard Gere, Jay Leno. There's all these people running around with the Beverly Hilton, and I saw Rodney. And me being the idiot I am, I ran up. Rodney, can you get a picture? No pictures, fellas, no pictures. I said, all right, all right. He said, I'll tell you what, I'll tell you a joke instead. I said, all right, all right. And I was about half pissed. He wouldn't let me take a picture. So he said, I'll tell you a joke instead. I said, all right, what's the joke? He said, the other night, I'm walking down the road. Guy's walking his dog. Dog starts licking himself. I said, man, oh man, if I could do that, he said, well, pet him. Maybe I'll let you. And that was the joke. I ran through it really quick because I don't want to eat up your time.
I
But
love him.
he then looked at me and said, "Do you have any weed?" Um, you know, I don't know if I should go on. I'll just say this: I
I
had
don't know how
weed,
you go on.
but I wouldn't give it to him because he wouldn't take a picture of the rat prick.
Oh, that's funny.
But no, he was funny.
He's amazing. I loved
That was
him. I
I
loved
have some a friend of mine ran sound for him, and I have some board tapes where he was really drunk, and but
Oh,
Rodney was
wow.
great. Love
Oh,
Rodney.
I loved him. I love that it gave Jim Carrey and Kinnison and all
Yeah,
those
yeah,
guys their start. I of course loved them, and I loved Richard Pryor. I just thought
yeah.
Richard
Okay.
Pryor
What
was
about
great.
comedians now that you like? Are there comedians out there
I
now
love
you
I
love?
love Brian Regan. I
Yeah,
think
you
he's
mentioned it.
fantastic. I saw Cat Williams live once in like an arena. I thought he was
Okay,
magnificent. I mean, he did like an hour and a half by himself. I mean, he had other openers, and one of his openers was Johnny Witherspoon, who did the 20 minutes of the strongest featuring act I'd ever seen.
okay.
I went on YouTube to watch more, and it was basically all just that same 20 minutes. But John Witherspoon to me was like a
Excuse me.
powerhouse of comedy. And
Okay.
he did this thing I thought was so brilliant was he came out and he did all these movie lines that you know him from to preempt getting heckled by those lines.
Oh, okay.
Because people would call out, something from Friday or something, but he did it first. And I
Okay.
thought that was so smart. But
Cool.
yeah, I used to really love, Chris Rock, Dave Chappelle, Louis
Right.
C.K.,
Okay.
all these guys, and whether they've fallen from grace or not, I mean, they really inspired me.
Yeah, funny's funny,
Funny's
and
funny, yeah.
it all depends, like some people like real clean, some people like dirty, nasty. I saw Dice Man and John Lovitz are
Oh
maybe
yeah.
doing something, so who
Oh
knows.
wow, that's cool.
Um, I want to make sure we covered everything. I do want to give a shout out to Meryl Climo
Oh
who
my
set
gosh.
this up.
One of my favorite human
Yeah,
beings. Just
Meryl's a wonderful, wonderful young lady. I've had
fantastic
her and Ginny
person.
Sykes on. I had them on separately. I think
Oh,
how it went down, I met Helen Shepard, who introduced me to Meryl, who introduced me to Ginny. Then I had them on together, and I just love them. Both of them. I don't know if you know Ginny or
amazing
not, but
people. Yeah, Meryl's instrumental in you talked about tonight in San Diego. She's the one that really got me on that, got me hosting it and writing for it and everything. And she introduced me to Disneyland. I'd never been to Disneyland until as an adult
oh, okay,
with Meryl, and she said it was like going with a little kid, and I felt like a little kid that day, and I
right.
fell in love with it. And I just love Meryl. If
I
people
do
don't
too.
know her as a comedian, Meryl Climo is so fantastic and just one of the greatest people I know.
Storyteller, amazing storyteller. I know Ginny
Yeah,
was talking about that she can just. They were out somewhere, and that night she did when she went up, she just went up and did what happened.
yeah, Yeah, I mean, it's just he's a natural, you know.
Cool. Well,
Yeah.
that's probably big words coming from you because you are very talented, my friend.
I love hearing that.
Um, I don't think you want to talk about, but I just got to bring it up. Do you do cruise ships as well?
I did. I've been doing them. I did them. I did like five of them.
Okay.
I realized it was sort of impacting my mental health, and so I opted to retire from that.
Okay, I
Just
didn't know if
recently.
I didn't know, and I want to bring it up in case
Oh.
you Royal
Well, I was going to use
Caribbean
it for my
after the
comedy minute,
show
actually.
airs. Well, buddy, you think you're coming back on our cruise ship?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want people to think I got fired. At least,
No, no,
so
no.
there's that. But yeah, I did do cruises, and it was very challenging. The first one was the most exciting because I'd never done it before,
Right.
and I bombed on one show, but then I got a standing ovation on the last show, and it was one of those moments where I was like, wow, this is amazing. But subsequent cruises have been really challenging. I mean, I've I haven't had a struggle with the shows as much as being alone, sort of on this ship for a week, and f- and the it was really hard.
Well, I told you, Jesse, that one of my best friends, Lester Bibbs, he's been on cruise ships. I mean, been on cruise ships probably for almost as long as I've known him. He goes on for
Yeah,
months at a time, and then he gets on another one, and but I
I'm
don't know how he
amazed
does
by
it.
that. I mean, it's admirable that people do it. And most of the comics I met on there were like, "You got to do more. You got to do more weeks. We're doing 25 weeks a year, or whatever." And I struggled with just the
And I
few
think
that I had.
he does that plus, and well, he's on top shelf, like their number one.
Yeah.
Where I mean, when he goes around the ship and shows the rooms and stuff, the casino and stuff, I mean, my God, looks like you're in Vegas.
Yeah, and I mean they spend a ton of money on those things. The ships are really high end and everything. I just found it really
It's not for
difficult.
you.
Not for me. I could see how it is for other people. You know, other people think I'm crazy. They're like, "Oh, you get paid to go on vacation." But I think, vacation you choose where you go and who you go with,
Yeah,
and you're
yeah,
not
right, right, right.
trapped in a sort of a windowless crew cabin below
Cool.
decks. And there's a lot
Well,
of that stuff too.
let's move on to happier times. I want to make sure, Jesse, I've really enjoyed my time with you. I hope I covered everything. If
Oh,
there's anything
yes.
that I missed or anything you got coming up, mention it now, and then we'll do your comedy minute, and I'll let you get
Sure.
back to reading some scripture and turning it early.
Thank you so much. Well, the only other thing that I would mention is that for over a decade, I've been teaching a class. I taught it
Okay,
at the Comedy Palace, and it was Introduction to Comedy, and then there was Advanced Stand-up Comedy, and I've taught it with other people, including my good friend Bijan Mostafavi. Shout out to him,
okay,
terrific comedian. Um, and I started doing it when it became the Mic Drop, so now it's Mic Drop San Diego, and I teach a class there. So I I teach comedy, and it's one of those things that I didn't realize how much I would love it. And it's
okay,
really to a lot of people that are new at it. And now that I've put in 20 years and done different things, I try to give them hints and, navigate through the open mics and figure
okay,
out how to formulate a really good 3 minute to 5 minute set in that first 6 weeks. And I just
okay,
find it really gratifying. I love it. And I would sort of encourage other comics to help other comics. When I first started, I remember saying to a mentor, I watched him give like a trick to this young comic. I said, "Hey, Dick, you going to give him all of our secrets?" He goes, "Yes, absolutely." And I said, "Why?" He goes, "Because I want the stock of comedy to be raised up. I want people to not just go to
right,
one show in their whole life and never go back because it was so shitty because they watched eight comics talk about their dick and then one comic that was okay." He said, "We teach him all the tricks. Let's get everybody better and comedy will be better." And I always
wow,
remembered that. And so I really and when I did an open mic in LA, the comic that was hosting at the Laugh Factory said something similar about we go farther as a team than we go as individuals, and nobody's standing in your way, but people can help you along the way. So
yeah,
if you join up and help each other and write together and sort of test ideas out and tag it. When I was first at the Comedy Store La Jolla, the comics there were really a tight knit bunch. We used to tag each other's jokes. We would offer jokes to each other and help build the setup even more. And we would trade sets. We did Oscar night where I would do Stephen Garza's bit, his act, and he would do
okay,
mine or vice versa. And I just think that's something that is like we forget and we think comedy's all one on one. It's all like me versus the world, and I don't think it has to be like that. I think that,
Well, I think it's
partnering up and helping each other,
I
it's really
think it's
underrated.
wonderful what you're doing, and I wish you all the best as far as that goes.
Thank you,
Um,
man.
I I don't know. I mean, I've been doing these for a while. I've had probably 152, and there's not a lot of that camaraderie. It's funny
Yeah,
you'd mention Merrill because Merrill's that kind of person, but I mean,
absolutely.
I really think it's really competitive, and I don't know that I can count the ones on one hand that actually want to help somebody out.
Yeah, and sometimes you get that feeling when you talk to a comic that they're looking at you sideways, like,
Yep, yep,
can I steal something from you, or can I, and also I'm protective of what I got, and I don't want to get.
yep.
So yeah, that whole attitude is just bothersome to me, and I really like the idea
Cool.
of, you know,
Well, I want to
you know,
make sure when I
helping
do
each
this,
other.
I'll put the links to whatever to your anything I
Thanks.
can do to help you with your classes and whatever you got going on because you're a
Yeah, I
great guy.
appreciate it. Thank you,
You're
man.
a
I
great
appreciate
guy.
you having me.
But we have one little bit of business to do yet. And you know what that is, don't you?
That's the comedy minute.
Yep. So we were
So,
going to do a formal introduction. Jesse Egan,
yeah.
your comedy minute. Go ahead, my friend.
All right, so I started doing cruises, as you mentioned earlier, and
Uh-huh.
well, the thing you didn't mention was it was on Carnival, and
Okay.
a lot of people were asking me, "Okay, cool. Like, what's the audience is like? What's the crowd like?" And I'm like, "Well, it's kind of like they took a Walmart and dumped it out into a fucking boat, and there's a lot of stabbings. It's a rough on them high seas. In fact, they moved the shows to midnight because there was too many fights. But last time, I did a cruise where I was on there on Thanksgiving, and I had 4 shows in one day, and the first two were clean shows,
Okay.
which I'm fine with. Obviously, I'm
Right.
dry bar and everything, but I showed up to these shows, the first one, and it's so many children. I mean, I didn't expect this because I'd been on a cruise where there's like no children on board, but this one, there's like 400 little kids in there, like 5-year-olds. And what you may not know is that 5-year-olds don't get jokes, right? So they're
Right.
just staring at me like, huh? What? For this clean show. And I'm just like, Paw Patrol, am I right? Dora the Explorer. Fuck! And I'm just dying. I'm bombing. They're staring at me like, who's this fat guy talking about? What the fuck? And I'm just eating shit for a half an hour. And then the kids stuck around for the second half an hour, and they all watched me bomb again for another half an hour with different fucking material, right? So I'm just so dejected at that point. That's an hour bombing, straight.
Yeah.
And I'm walking out of there and I'm just like, Jesus Christ. And the peppy cruise director's like, so what are you gonna do now? And and I'm just like, well, now I think I'm gonna jump off this fucking boat. And she goes, looks around, she's like, don't say that out loud. And I was like, why? She goes, because if any of the crew hears you saying that, they will quarantine you to your cabin for the rest of this trip. And I was like, really? Let's do it. I'm jumping. Get me the fuck out of here. So, so that's sort of encapsulates my experience on board, and and
Oh
so
man.
don't threaten to jump when you're on a cruise ship because they get you
Okay.
there.
All right.
Yeah.
Jesse, I love that. That was fantastic.